Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Levitt-Keaty. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives.
Hey everyone. Hi listeners. It's Wendy Papazan here, and I'm here with my co-host Sarah Reynolds, and we have a very special guest today. I'm so excited to introduce you to Belinda Rosenblum, who I had the opportunity to be on a special podcast that she's curating called The Secret Lives of CEO Moms. So I think, Belinda, you met Jay at an event, right?
I did. He's amazing.
Yeah. And Jay automatically knew to connect us. And within minutes of looking at Belinda's website, I was like, oh, we have to get her on the podcast. So she's on a mission to liberate CEO moms from their fear and lack of knowledge on money in their business. So you guys know how we preach profit over here. And we're just going to do a deep dive into all of the things that she does. And she's going to give us some tips and tricks on how to, basically get more money from your business and how to do that as a woman in this industry. So welcome, Belinda. Hi.
Welcome, Belinda, to the Empire Building podcast. Profit's a big part of how we live that big life. And so I cannot wait for our listeners to learn from you today and for me to learn from you.
Thank you. Yes, I think that we forget that. I think that we think it's, I just have to make more money. I just have to make more revenue. And then we forget that it's actually the profit, like the revenue less the expenses as the profit, that allows us to be able to pay ourselves and actually get ourselves the freedom and the flexibility we started our business for in the first place.
Yeah. Well, why don't you just give us a little snapshot around what you do and kind of where you started? I know your business is called Owning Your Money. And can you just maybe tell us about, you were sharing with me a little bit about how you had an aha in the middle of the night around that?
Yeah. So let's see. I started this business back in 2007. So I'm a bit of a dinosaur / OG in this online business space. That was after 15 years in corporate accounting and finance. And I left corporate feeling like there was a different way that I could help people in the world, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. And then I almost became a financial advisor, turned down 3 of those jobs because I didn't want to feel like a doctor just giving people a prescription for an asset allocation. I'm like, they're hurting. There's a reason why people are making $100,000 and have nothing left, or are in debt, or feel stressed or afraid of money. And so I started up this business, and I started it with my name at the time because I couldn't come up with a name for it. And my name, if you guys want a good laugh here. So my maiden name was spelled F-U-C-H-S. It's very rough starting in 4th grade when kids knew what curse words were. So I just started the business with just my name, like Belinda Fuchs LLC, because I'm a woman of action. I'm like, well, the longer I'm trying to come up with a name, I can't sell anything. I'm not, putting it out there. I'm like, let's just get this thing going. And then sometimes you have to let it go to open yourself up to actually come up with the creativity. But when you're holding on so tight, it's like when you're holding a soap bar and then it like flashes out of your hands. And so I came up with this concept of Own Your Money at like 2 a.m, and I was sharing with Wendy that I literally called GoDaddy, like back when they had a customer service phone number. And I was like, this is it. I feel it in my bones. I need to have this URL. This is going to be the future of my whole, business and life. And the guy's like, okay, let me see what I can do. Long story short, I back ordered it. And then a couple of days later, it was sold, and it was sold to me. And so that was the beginning back in 2007. And it's so interesting because I came to realize when I took on, like, why do I feel like owning your money is so important, is that there's such a difference between owning something versus having something. Like, we can have a business, but do we actually own the success and our role as the CEO? It's like you can have knowledge, but that's different than knowing something. And I feel like that's the piece that we're missing. We have businesses, but we're treating it like a hobby, and then we're getting paid like hobby owners because we don't actually understand how to run our business better and how to grow it and help people in the way that we could with our expertise. And I find that oftentimes the source is that we don't understand the money side of it. And within my second year of business, though, I had like a rude awakening, you could say, about what it really means to own it at this other level, because I too fell into the, oh, I just have to make more revenue thing. Because especially back then, that's what people were like, well, just go sell things, just go make money and get all the help you need and like take all the courses. And so in my second full year business, brace yourselves, I grossed $155,248, which is amazing. Second full year business.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Like, you know, in a recession, basically, it was 2009. And yet I profited $2,000 on that.
Ouch.
Ouch is right. And I remember I was sitting at my desk and I got an email from my bookkeeper with my final results, and I just celebrated myself for my 6-figure year. I thought it was the bomb.com. And I'm like, I only took home $2,000. No wonder I haven't been able to pay myself. And I was like, this sucks. Like, this is not what I wanted. This is not why I set up the business. And I think that was when it really hit home for me, that distinction of, wait a second, I need to own the money, but make sure I'm owning the profit of the business and the systems and the team, and like actually step in as the leader, not just kind of going through the motions and like avoiding the things that I didn't want to look at. Because I think somewhere I had a feeling we weren't nearly as profitable as I wanted. So I put on my big girl panties and I was like, okay, we need more systems. We need more constraints on team. I needed to create a profit plan that included paying myself, because I was just taking the scraps. I was like, oh, if there's anything left, I'll get paid. And I think a lot of people have that approach. And the result of that approach is $2,000, and so I had to do things differently. And then I had this big realization that you can't just keep winging your finances and hope and pray it's going to work out. That's not the strategy to create a successful, sustainable, profitable business. And the bonus part is that then that next year we grossed $256,000. And we profited $96,000, so almost $100,000, right?
Wow.
Yes, I know, because I'm like, lean in. Some people would be like scarcity and pull back and spend less. And I'm like, no, we have to reallocate where the money's going, created more leverage, and then really leaned into the revenue to make that happen. And I got engaged that year too. So like I actually got up from my laptop and had a life too.
That's awesome. So based on my quick math, you went from less than a 1% profit margin to a 40% profit margin in 1 year.
Yes, essentially. Right. So 2,000 on 155 to 96 on 256. And sometimes there are those levels where, when I was at $150,000 of expenses, I needed to push more on revenue if I wanted to keep that expense level. And I think that people don't put constraints on how much they spend. I think that's why Profit First has done so well in general, is that it forces people to say, okay, wait a second, what do I want to spend so that I can be paying myself and setting aside money for profit and all that? And I hadn't done that. I just spent whenever I spent. And it was only once I was actually paying more attention and figuring out where my money was going and getting more intentional with all of it that I could create profit. And I even remember the first time that I was paying myself intentionally, I was like, I think my finger shook. I was like, I'm going to pay myself every month. And I didn't start out with a ton. I think it was $500. But I had made the commitment that I couldn't be last anymore because that was not sustainable. I left a healthy 6-figure job. My family and friends already had a bit of an intervention for me in my first 6 months of business. They're like, how are you going to make any money doing this? I was like, I'm committed to this. I'm going to make it happen. And I hit submit, and then the rest is history.
I think that's so smart, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that they can actually choose how much money they want to make, and they can work backwards from that math. I think so many of us just feel like we have to grow, and growth is important, because if you're not growing, you are dying in any business. But at the same time, you can say, I want to make $100,000 a year in profit, and work your way backwards from that math. And I just don't think people even have that, mental model in their head,
I totally agree. So we set up a calculator for that. That's exactly what our Pay Yourself calculator does. It says, how much do you want to pay yourself? And then how much are your expenses of your business? And then what does your revenue need to be so that you can set money aside for taxes, you can get paid. And then once you know what that revenue number is, maybe it's higher than you might want to imagine, but that's the only way you're ever going to make that happen. I think so many women entrepreneurs don't set goals because they don't want to be disappointed, but then they're always disappointed.
Yeah,
true.
And so at least if we have the facts, if we're like, okay, I want to be let's say, making $15,000 a month so that I can be paying myself that $8,000 a month, give or take $8,600 for your 100 grand payday, then at least we know, okay, what is it going to take to make that happen? And then we can determine the revenue streams, and we can make sure usually I have to help people raise their prices as a part of the conversation because they're undercharging. And then they can start to see, like, it's like this light bulb that goes off, like, oh, right, I get to control my prices. I get to control what I sell. I can decide how I want to be making my money. So I also say all revenue is not created equal. And I think that sometimes people think that, they think like, oh, I just have to make that money. But how you make the money and how much work it takes to make the money really matters. And you get to decide that. It's a beautiful thing.
So good.
If you take on that ownership in the process.
You have dropped in 9 minutes, like, so many gold nuggets. I'm
taking notes.
Seriously, yeah. I know. And I want to make sure that our listeners, I'm going to do my best to sort of bullet point some of the things you've said because it's been so much gold. So when you define owning your money, it is thinking about it first.
Like paying attention.
Attention. Like, what is the amount of money as the entrepreneur, as the empire builder you want to make yourself? Okay. And then working backwards. The other thing I heard was it takes systems, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're fans of systems. I'm fans of systems. I feel like otherwise we're drowning in chaos.
Yes.
I think that's a lot of it is that so many entrepreneurs feel overwhelmed all the time and they don't make nearly the progress that they can because they don't have the vision, they don't have the direction that they need. And so it feels like, so part of my definition of overwhelm is it feels like all the things have to be done all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's even in the one thing, right? Is like, but that's not the case. It's just that that's what we allow ourselves to be drowned under with. And so if we can rise out of that and be like, actually, there are certain revenue generating activities, there are certain things in the business that are more of the 20% that create 80% of the results, but we just end up spending most of our time being busy in the 80% so much of the time.
Well, and even if you're a solopreneur, even if you're kind of doing everything yourself, knowing how something is done and doing it the same way over and over again really reduces all of that decision fatigue that we go through as entrepreneurs. I'm just having an aha here. So John Wooten, one of the most winningest coaches of all time, would start all of his players out by teaching them how to put their socks on. And I think often as entrepreneurs, we're putting our socks on a different way every single day. We've got different socks. We've got low socks, all that kind of stuff. And if we're doing that in every single part of our business every single day, it's exhausting.
Totally. And I love the idea of reducing the decision fatigue because we do have so many decisions that we're constantly making. So if we allow ourselves to create a system and just have a way we do things, I love thinking in systems. I even have systems for my kids' birthday parties. It's just how I operate and how
we'll
I think.
We'll have to get you back on and unpack
very
that.
Strategic. Oh yeah, there's a checklist for that. My team teases me. I'm like, oh yeah, I got that. And I think that especially now with AI, honestly, the more that you can create a system and this is how we do things, the more you can allow an AI bot or you can create a custom chat GPT or you can have a support that's here's the system, here's what I want my show notes to look like every time. I feel especially for things that are repetitive, you can certainly use AI to get some of your stuff done faster than if you were trying to do it. And especially if you were trying to reinvent the wheel every time you're doing it.
What's critical for everyone to hear is that systems create efficiencies. Efficiencies create increase in profit. They go hand in hand. So many entrepreneurs think systems is not tied to your money. The systems of your business is 100% tied to your money because it creates efficiencies, which creates that increase in profit.
Totally. And I would take it even one more step to say increased profit then creates freedom and choice and flexibility and a life.
Yes.
All of these things that it's not just money for the sake of accumulating money.
So what are 2 to 3 sort of habits or systems that you recommend that entrepreneurs can sort of employ to gain control over their money?
Yeah, totally. Love this. So I think about everything in 3 major categories. I have a whole framework inside our cash flow CO system, and I want everyone to create their own what I call cash command center. So think of it in terms of 3 categories: your money story, your money system, and your money strategy. And so I want you to have one habit or system for each one at a minimum. So I'm going to talk through those. So on the money story piece, this is all about your own beliefs and your own identity. And so I want you to pay attention to what you believe about your own success, about how you are with money, about what's possible for you and your business. And so often we stay stuck in this fourth grade decision that we made of, oh, I'm not good with math. Oh, I don't want to look. Oh, and we just get a Heisman, like an arm's length distance to anything that has to do with money. And we don't realize that this is actually the missing link that we've had. Like for so many people, they finally hear me and they're like, oh my God, like the guide that can help me to be profitable. Like I know how to make money, but I don't know how to actually fully monetize so that there's enough profit for me at the end of the day. And part of that is really cleaning up your beliefs. And so what we do inside Cashflow CEO is we source the belief. Because I'm not just like, here, throw an affirmation on it, put a Post-it note on your computer. It's a good start, but we actually have to figure out, why do you keep telling yourself that again and again? Because we're repeating these old patterns that started when we were like 8, 9. And then we keep living into that, like, see, I'm not good with money. It's like, well, actually, it's just a CEO skill you never learned. So how do we start to teach it to you in this different way that feels like, oh, I can actually do this? Like, women are really good with money.
Yeah, I think women especially have this belief. I can remember I went to the 4-day MBA with Keith Cunningham. And
I love him.
I went, yeah, and it's a very expensive class. And I went and
I haven't done it yet, but I like him. Yeah.
It's great. Well, 85% of the people in the room were men. And my aha actually was like, these guys aren't good with money either. They're just acknowledging that and then showing up and paying to learn.
Yeah, and committed to being on the other side of that. I just think that we often shy back, and I think that's part of what keeps us in the fear and the shame is that we think, oh, I should know this. And we just should on ourselves all the time, but we didn't have anyone that ever taught us. And I've even been in programs where they theoretically are more money-based, don't talk about profit, don't have any spreadsheets that ever get you to profit. And I used to be really mad, and I came to realize that it's because I don't think they really understand it. I don't think they're really close enough. So if they're not feeling skilled or adequate to teach this, then they just teach what they know, which is revenue. And so much of all the coaching that people get is revenue-based. And then I think it has us feel worse. Like, okay, wait a second. I took this business coaching program. Why aren't I making the profit? And I'm like, because it's different. Like revenue is not equal to profit. And so, I think it's kind of like, you wouldn't drive a car without driving lessons. And I think that we all start businesses just assuming, oh, I'll figure it out. Like I'll set up. And this was me too. I mean, I shared with you my second year in business,
it's like the E-Myth. You start out because you're good at something. And then when you have to grow into the business, it's a completely different skill.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And so I think that that's what we do, though, is that we set up the shingle and we don't really understand what we're doing to make money from the business. We just know our skill. We know how to do health coaching. We know how to do, life coach, whatever is the thing. And because most of my people are service providers versus product-based businesses. And so they know how to do their service really well, but they don't actually know how to make money from their service. So the first piece, back to your question, is cleaning up the beliefs, is like looking at the money story and kind of sourcing it. Then the second piece is money systems. And I think that most people don't have money systems. They operate in a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, a lot of where did all my money go? And so a habit there is to track it, is to just pay attention to it. Whether you're using, we give some people a fancy spreadsheet if they're under 100 grand in revenue. If they're over that, then we usually recommend a QuickBooks or a Xero or something like that. And we have a really easy money map I can give all of your listeners, which is like a dashboard to say, how much revenue did I bring in? How much did I spend in expenses? What's that profit? And then they can start to look at what's that profit percentage and how do I need it to be more so that I can be paying myself, but at least just getting honest about the numbers that are actually happening instead of feeling like they're happening to you and you have no idea what the heck is going on.
How often do you recommend they look at that?
I mean, at least monthly. Right? We do it more like twice a week. We update our own sheets that will show, okay, what were people supposed to be paying us? What did we actually receive in? And then because sometimes like you can have a system like a Stripe or other payment processing and something doesn't run. somebody fails. Like all those things are possible. And we keep track and we encourage our students to keep track of what we call contracted revenue. Like what are people supposed to be paying you? And then you project revenue as the sum of what's already contracted to come in plus new sales equals your projected revenue.
I've got a recent story on this because so this year so far at Empower Home, every month we've been growing on revenue like year over year, except for April, which like April in the real estate world, that's the industry I'm in, that's a big month typically. Like we're not typically going backwards in April. And I didn't know what was going on in terms of like, I was looking into it and come to find out that our agents were really struggling with what the client agreed to pay and actually collecting it because of the way commission structures have changed over the last year. Not to get into it, but what you're talking about, Belinda, impacted us $400,000.
Holy cow.
I know.
But see, that's why if you only looked at it quarterly or only monthly, I mean, I know some people, it was March and I was talking with her and I was asking her what her numbers were for the prior year and she didn't know. Like there are a lot of business owners that operate that way. And that when you do, of course it's happening to you because you have no idea. I'm like, how do you run? You're literally running your business blindfolded.
Yes. Yeah. So I now look at it weekly. What was the contract agreement? What was collected to where we can catch it much faster? But I mean, what you're saying is so spot on. Like having that tracked and actually looked at, I think a lot of business owners are probably missing that. And that's money owed to you.
For sure. And I would say weekly. And then I would say even about 1 or 2 days before the close of the month, we also do a final check. Because sometimes then we can catch something that failed, something that didn't go through for some reason. Like, I mean, we have a very fancy back-end system, but sometimes it doesn't run. And we're like, why didn't it run? Oh, somebody set up a little tiny thing wrong when they set up the subscription. And then, that's $3,000. And you're like, okay, wait a second. I wanted that in my bank account, So I think, you've learned that hard lesson. And so sometimes we learn the lesson and we're like, okay, now I'm going to check it every week. And it can really add up, particularly when you do have higher ticket items and there might be multiple people.
Yeah. Well, think about $3,000 times 5 times a year.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
That's so much money.
Right.
Yeah,
and
so much money.
Honestly, sometimes your clients might not be paying enough attention to their money to even notice that you didn't bill them or that, it didn't go through, or they might not look at it until their credit card statement comes. So if everyone isn't paying attention, then no one's going to catch it. And so we put it like a few different levels of people who are just going to be keeping an eye on that to make sure that things are flowing and processing and the money's coming in. So that was number 2 is your money system. And then number 3 is your money strategy. And this is a big missing for so many business owners, particularly female business owners, that they're set up, they know what they're doing, and they don't actually, though, know how to grow and maintain their profitability. So a lot of times people grow and then they're broke. Or they just have more money in their bank account and they do what I call bank balance decision making, where they see the money in the bank and they're like, great, I can spend it now.
I'm good.
Yeah. I'm rich, and instead of actually having a plan. So that's what a money strategy is all about. And then that habit, I would say, is paying yourself regularly based on a profit plan so that you can see, okay, how much is the business making? How much do I need to be paying myself on a regular basis? And how do I make that happen? And then when you have those higher months, you tuck the money aside. So you don't just leave it in your account and think, oh, great, I can spend it all. Because a lot of times, like especially in this online space, you can do a launch, you can do a big promotion, and then all of a sudden you're making a lot of money in 1 month, but then the next month you're fulfilling on that. So you might not be making a lot of money. And then sometimes we have the memory of a goldfish and we're like, oh my God, do I need to close the business? It's like, no, you just made all the money a month ago. You're not doomed. You don't need to close, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, you're still successful. And so if you've tucked the money aside, then you just pull it down into your main account and you're like, oh, right, because I just sold a ton that month. It doesn't mean that nobody wants to buy from me this month. Oh, right, because I'm not even really selling because I'm fulfilling on this big, program.
Yeah. I think we experienced that, Sarah and I, our first year when we ran our sister company. It was called Amplify at the time. Now it's called Her Best Life. And we were doing these large scale events, which none of us had ever done before, where you're collecting the revenue, in like February, and then the event's happening in September, and then you're having to book for the next year. And we were all just like, because we're in a service-based business where it's a lot more predictable revenue like that, where you're not keeping these big stashes of cash for something that's going to happen in 8 or 10 months. So yeah, that was like that was a learning experience for all of us. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot more management. Like I think in general, yes, of course, as entrepreneurs, we would love to have more consistent income. I think the reality of it is that we have to learn how to manage the inconsistent income and then notice where it might be coming up. And then could I do anything about that? So like we had one client who finally created a plan and we were going over it and he was like, oh my gosh, it was a husband and wife team. And he was like, August is just always our slowest month. So we're listening to you. We set some money aside in May and June because those were great months. And I was like, or what if August wasn't your slowest month? Because he just kind of resigned himself that like July, August was going to suck. And it's okay. We have money set aside. So instead, he was like a acupuncture, holistic healer kind of person. So we did a retreat. So then August became one of his highest months of the entire year because he did a retreat at the end. He was selling tickets July and August, and boom, now all of a sudden, because we could see what was coming down the pipeline, it didn't happen to us. We could be more proactive about putting something else in what potentially could be a slower month. So it really empowers you to feel like I do have control over the money that my business makes. I don't have to feel like it's all happening to me.
So good.
Yeah. So those are the three.
Manage the inconsistent income versus being victim to the inconsistent. That's
Because I think
huge.
sometimes it's like we just wish, if only I could have consistent income. And I think sometimes, if you have a business that's solely like retainer based and you just have a handful of clients, sure. But even then, if somebody pays you in full for a 12-month instead of paying over time, it's going to cause a blip in your revenue. And so instead of being frustrated that you don't have consistent income, it's about learning how to manage the inconsistent income and making sure, though, that you can get paid consistently, even while your revenue might be a little bit more up and down.
I was more of the mind of like, I just kind of kept it all in a pot until the end of the year. And I think one of the things I've learned from you, Sarah, is you're a lot more consistent about pulling. You leave a certain amount in your reserves, a certain amount in your checking account, and then you're just pulling it off as profit every single month. And what that does is psychologically for the business owner and for the people that are working with you, there's not this whole, cushion of money that's there anymore. And that's helped me and my team like tremendously. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, I think it also reduces the desperation, I think, of like, can I get paid? Will I get paid?
Yeah. I think it's important, like this balance of making sure that there's not so much of a safety net that we're not pushing a strategy to increase business. And at the same time, having obviously the plan in place. And so I think it was so smart of that coaching student for you, Belinda, that they had the money and they came up with a strategy. Like that's really
the best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds. And then, and then you're actually able to like do the strategy because you're not so stressed out because if it doesn't work, if it's the first time doing an event like that, if it doesn't work, then okay, it's not like, let's try something different.
Yeah. And I think we don't realize how much the stress reduces our creativity and our confidence.
True.
Like think about on every sales call, if you're feeling like, please buy for me, please buy, I really need you to buy. You're coming off with a certain energy versus here's an invitation. I know that I'm the solution to your problem and I'd love to help you. It was interesting. I just did an event last Friday. I was a speaker at a convention and I had like 15 minutes and then I had a few follow-on like roundtables and 7 people signed up for my program. And somebody I was talking to afterwards, they were like, wow, you're such a closer. And I was like, actually, I think it's more about understanding how do you match you as the solution to them having the problem. And it was like a lack of profitability was what I was teaching in Cash Flow CO and showing them how it fits, but coming from a place of an invitation versus a need for them to buy. And then they could be like, yeah, you know what? I have been needing this solution. Like this would be great. Can I join?
I love this. And I think that sometimes people, when they've been in an industry for a long time, there's a certain amount of confidence that just comes with, I've been doing it for a long time. I'm successful. I know I'm going to be successful. But what I hear you saying is that if you're a new entrepreneur, you can actually have this confidence just by looking at your numbers, having a little bit of a safety net, going into every meeting like, you know what, if this is believing that it's the right opportunity, but if it's not a big deal, as opposed to like, that energy. And so that will turn you into an experienced whatever right away, in the first year or two in your business. So that's so wise.
Yeah. And I think it's finding the confidence in the things that you are sure about. And so like if you know that you can create results, then get testimonials from people and get that social proof and talk about their stories and share from this place of, hey, this was possible for Jane and Mary and John, and it's possible for you too. And then you're grounded in those results because that's what people want. They want to be able to buy from you because they want the results that you can help them create. And so if you stay grounded in that, and if you know like, okay, if it's not this person, it's going to be the next person, but that you're always committed to your bigger vision, to making an impact on the world, to not getting stuck. Because I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, if somebody says no, or, we put so much meaning behind the money, which is what I think keeps us in that downward spiral sometimes, instead of realizing, wait a second, I get to create the definition of success for myself and to really make it about something bigger than just the one person that says yes or no, but help the person even see the bigger vision and possibility that they could have if they worked with you. And I think that sometimes we play too small and then we think that that's all there is. But actually, if we were to play bigger, we could see the possibility of what we could be creating. But we play small, we get small, and then we're like, see? This is all there is for me. And I'm like, oh no, there's a whole other world. Like in the first 2 weeks, I make people start to come up with a bigger vision of what they can be creating because they have been playing too small and then living into that, thinking that that's all that's possible for them.
So much of what you're saying, this is spot on also with what we see even in Empire Circle for Her Best Life. I was coaching one of our members and I was noticing she was playing small. And I asked her, like, you're very good at what you do. Like, what's causing that? And it was because of some money stuff she has going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of the lack of confidence that we see is actually because they feel like an imposter because their background, like the real part of their business, the financials part of their business isn't where it needs to be. And so starting with that is what really leads to catapulting the confidence to actually dream bigger.
Yes.
Because they don't feel like they're faking it.
Yeah.
For me, that's 100%. This is so wise, guys. I'm just like, my mind is being blown here. It's so good.
Hope everyone is picking up what we're laying
I'm
down.
kind of like unpacking my journey in my own brain. So, but like I know for me, I went through all of that because I wasn't a business major. I had never studied money. I didn't know anything about running a business. And just that, that your story of at the end of the year, looking at your P&L and seeing like, wow, I only have $2,000. Like that happened to me so many of those first years. And me looking at, other people on my team, other salespeople on my team who made 10 times as much as I did that year and not really knowing how to deal with it, and just being like opening up that P&L and then closing it right away because there was all that fear around it because I just didn't know, so it's a lot easier just to do the other thing. But then like you're saying, it's like unpacking your money story really, and then getting help. I got a coach who was able to help me see that just by opening up your P&L every week, that's all we did is look at it and go through it. Like that just takes, it's like anything else. It takes the sting out of it if you do it over and over again. And then all of a sudden you get this confidence around, okay, yeah, I can do this. I can create revenue, but I can also manage my expenses. And so I can navigate those ups and downs. So it's just so good.
It's so good. And it's like we don't realize that when we don't feel like we're a good steward of our money, we actually often self-sabotage bringing in more because we're afraid it's just going to put more zeros on our stress and our problems. And it's like, if I can barely manage this at $100,000 business, oh my God, how could I even possibly imagine creating a $300,000 or $500,000 or even someday $1 million business? I'm just going to F that up too. And so it's about getting the foundation now so that you can build that empire. But most business owners have a foundation of a shack and they're trying to build this empire on top of that. And it's like a skyscraper that's just going to fall down if they don't ever take the time to actually create a money system, to actually create a strategy. And I believe that real profit is planned. It's not a happy accident. And that's how so many business owners are running their businesses right now.
So good. So the money is actually what I'm hearing Belinda say. Money is the first domino to building that big business in an even bigger life. It's actually your first domino. And so, Belinda, I know you've got a lot of lives to change today. And so we have a hard stop here coming up. But I would love, like, how can you help our listeners more? Like, tell us more about what you do practically for your coaching clients.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been so fun.
So good.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I feel like we've all been like, yes, and yes, and yes. So I help you grow your business more profitably. And I do it mainly through our Cash Flow CEO program. We're going to be opening that up in October. But before then, we're doing this cool series that all of your listeners would be able to have access to. They would just start now with either our money map or our Pay Yourself Calculator, 2 great free resources that we have. I'll make sure to get you links for those.
We'll put those in the show notes.
Amazing. Yep. And so the map will help you start to see, okay, let me have a quick snapshot of how much is my business making. And then sometimes it's like we think ignorance is bliss, but actually it's really costly. So if you could just see it all, you'd be like, oh, okay, no wonder I felt stressed in February. I didn't make a lot of money in February. Like June felt better. Okay, I can see why. And so you have the map, you have the calculator, and we even have a really low cost program called the Paycheck Formula for Business Owners that could also be a helpful, easy, quick step. And then particularly for the business owning moms, this will likely come out just in time to catch Wendy and me and 28 experts on the secret lives of CEO moms. And so, a lot of what I do is help people to see how do you grow your business, but also how do you have a richer life? Like, how do you find the way that you don't have to sacrifice being present with your family to be able to grow? And I watched my mom do that, and I'm so committed to finding a way and being a role model so that other moms can find the both instead of the either or. So I do a little bit of one-to-one coaching, but I mostly serve through my group programs now and the free series and the private podcast and all that.
How do they find it?
So I'm on Instagram at Own Your Money, and then I'll make sure that you have links for each of the, like the calculator, the map, the private podcast. And then once you're with us and kind of on our list, then we'll make sure that we notify you when the series comes out in the end of September.
I love it. Well, Belinda, honestly, I mean, today's been amazing. I've had a lot of personal ahas. I've took 2 pages of notes, and it's been such a treat to have you on today because I think you're right. Women need to own their money. And like we always say, more women in the hands of money definitely changes the world. And you are a huge advocate for that. And you've been doing it for almost 20 years now. So kudos to you. And you are changing the world by what you're doing. So I really appreciate you being here today. And thank you to all of our listeners who tuned in today because Belinda's here to help us grow that big business and even bigger life.
Based on what you heard today, go take action because as Wendy said, we want more money in your hands to make a difference in this world. So thanks, Belinda.
Let's do it.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not Keller Williams Realty LLC and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.